Good morning. Obviously, I want to talk to you about expanding foam. Whether you get expanding foam from the can, which is kind of not the best way to do it, but it is a practical way to do it. You can do a lot of different things with these things. Contractors have been using this stuff for millennia, since it came in an aerosol can. And of course, fabricators use it a lot of times. They make it up themselves. The problem I have with making it up yourself in like a can or something like that is it's very hard to control it. This stuff has a tendency to want to expand beyond bounds. When I did mobile electronics installation, and somebody would come in to have me do sound deadening and custom fab were some of my top trade items. But sound deadening was one of my big things, and I'm a real big fan of getting rid of rattles and stuff. Rattles drive me insane. I would actually have customers sign a section of the receipt where I would write on the receipt, I'm going to be using expanding foam to get rid of vibration and noise in the vehicle, and the customer is aware of that, and installer is not responsible for the removal of this product in the future. And then I'd put a line there with a little X, have them sign it, and that way we all have a copy of it. Because once this stuff goes in, it's very hard to get it out. It's not impossible to get it out, but it's damn hard to get it out. And if you get this on your shirt, it's there forever. So if you use this stuff with a shirt or pair of pants you really enjoy, be ready to have something permanently on there. I've got shirts that I've tried. I even took a shirt just for fun. I took a shirt and put it to the belt sander, and all it did is it took away the shirt. So there's a hole in the shirt where the expanding foam was, because once this stuff dries, it's there forever. In fact, once it actually gets on clothing, it's there forever. You can get a lot of it up, so you won't have a big tall glump or something like that. It looks like a tumor or something. But where it's actually touched the fabric, it bonds to the fabric almost instantly. I think you can use paint thinner to loosen it from the area, but that you'll actually be able to feel the texture of the shirt, and it won't be the same again. You might be able to get it so it looks pretty again, but you can feel it. It'll feel like a heavy duty stain, and that's within seconds of touching the shirt. Doesn't matter if it's cotton or polyester or whatever. This stuff sticks to everything. That's the beauty of this stuff, is it does stick to everything. SPL guys have been using this stuff forever. I've been using this forever. For one time, just for amusement, I actually built a box in a guy's car using this stuff. And I got the idea from a buddy of mine. He said, well, if you're having trouble making these door panels for this car, why don't you make them out of expanding foam and then cut and shape them the way you want? Thank you, Chris Donardo. And so that was like 2005 or 2003, something like that. It was in 2004, I think it was. Yeah, 2004, 2005. I did this guy's BMW, and it was a really rad install. And people look at the work that I did on that car, and I never got to finish it because the guy skipped town. But whatever. I'm not upset about that anymore, because I still have the pictures of the work that I did, and he even tried telling people that he did the work, but he didn't have any of the pictures or himself in the picture, making this stuff. So whatever. But anyway, so I built part of the sub box using expanding foam because I needed to get these forms exactly right. And I couldn't do it because of the angles, and I was building some of the parts of the car into the car. And it was really impossible to take the car and flip it over on its side so I could get this rolling edge. And so what I did is I filled some of the box with expanding foam. And then once I built and I put the plexi or the fiberglassing form over it, which I was using fleece back in those days, I think in grow cloth, mainly grow cloth. Then I was able to extract the expanding foam afterwards, and that made everything so much easier. SPL guys use this to seal in gaps, because basically that's what it does say. It says gaps and cracks. And there's a couple of different ways you can buy this stuff in the can. Great Stuff, in my opinion, is the best one. Whenever I go to Home Depot, if I think about it, I grab a can even if I don't need it. So I've got 2 or 3 of these cans laying around here somewhere. But yeah, this one was sitting on my shelf. And you can buy the big gap filler, which expands a lot more, which costs more money. But here's a trick. If you want to get this stuff to expand a little bit more, get a spray bottle, like a Windex spray bottle or something, and put it on mist and just fill it with water, no Windex or any of that kind of stuff. The ammonia will actually probably do the opposite. But what you would want to do is you want to mist it with a little bit of water. So when you first spray it down, take a little bit of water and mist it over the top of it, and it'll make it expand more because it's adding oxygen to it. So it'll create a little bit more bubble, but more importantly, it'll expand to more areas. One of the reasons I would also have people sign a consent form or a consent onto the receipt is because there's one little thing that people don't talk about with this expanding foam, is this stuff's incredibly strong. Once it takes up an area, then it starts to expand more beyond the irregular expansion of the area. So it'll fill up an entire area. And I've seen this stuff, and it's never happened to me, but I've always been very cautious. This stuff will actually bend metal. Traditional metal, like, the outside of the car, it's not going to build a frame. It's not going to bend a frame or bend joint spots and stuff like that. It's not going to do that, but it can expand to the point where it'll actually bend the outer body of the car. So my car has probably, I usually use the bigger can, which is light. It's the same stuff as this, but it's a bigger can. And I have probably about 20, maybe 25 cans of this stuff in my car. And this stuff works great. And normally you would hear it like a sound like that. Hard as nails. This will not bend. This section of the car will stop a bullet. It'll go right through this like it's butter, of course, and it'll go through most of the expanding foam, but the other side of it. On the other, about 3 inches inside, actually more like 4 or 5 inches inside of this piece of metal here is my box, which is 3 inches thick on each side. But I needed to seal up this area here and across the roof so that this back section is a separate section from this section and that section. By the way, this section is also a separate section of the car, so it's actually pressure sealed. So the only way I can get this door to shut properly is to roll the window down slightly and then shut it. And then it'll actually shut all the way. Otherwise, it doesn't want to shut. So I'm just going to leave that open because I don't feel like rolling the window down right now. So this great stuff does really well with so many different things. But yeah, so one of the tricks, a little trick for dealing with it so you don't have to worry about damaging somebody's car or whatever you're working on, is you got to give it places to escape. And so like on panels and stuff in the cars and stuff like that, what I would typically do is I would tape over all the spots where it could possibly leak out of. And as it expands through those areas and stuff, and I would use those holes also to add more expanding foam into those areas so you could get it to spread out more, and it gets rid of a lot of vibration that way. But then you peel the tape up later on and allow the stuff to ooze through after it's already passed through that chamber. And it gives it ways for it to escape, because what it's trying to do is the catalyst that they put in this stuff is trying to get rid of the oxygen. And there's oxygen in the foam because it's foam. And so it's looking for a way to escape the oxygen. And so what that does is it actually causes it to press out. And if it doesn't have any place to go, it'll push and bend metal. And I've seen it happen, like I said. But I've never had a problem doing it myself because I understand how the product works. And, just like a jigsaw, you don't put your finger in front of the blade. So, you got to understand the principles of this stuff. Some of them have a catch seal here that'll seal it up. I cut those off immediately. And then I bend the thing back with my teeth, what teeth I have. And this stuff works really well. I'm not going to demonstrate putting the thing on there because I only do that when I'm ready to actually use the product. Make sure you shake it because this stuff is thick. But yeah, so I've built sub boxes. I've done sound systems. I've done sound deadening. That was one of the things that people loved about me, is I knew how to get rid of rattles. I have when I did installation, I had a deal with my people, and I've told people this for years. I would get rid of the rattles, period, end of story. There are some stipulations to that, but like I told a guy once, I said, I can get rid of all the rattles on your car except for this. And they're like, well, why can't you get rid of the rattling on the wing? And I says, because the wing itself isn't very stable. And he says, well, what do you mean? He says, it's a part of the car. And I go, no, it's not a part of the car. The wing is an add-on to the car. A part of the car would be like the door. I can get rid of the rattles on the door because it's bolted in there and securely, and it was built by the manufacturer. But adding a wing to the car, it's going to vibrate against the car. It's something added onto the car. So as an example, the only part of my car that actually vibrates is my spoiler that's on the back. That just looks cool. It really doesn't do anything. I mean, it's a front wheel drive car, so seriously, what is a spoiler going to do on a front wheel drive car? Almost nothing. But yeah, it's like putting a wing on top of a wing. There you go, Honda. To this day, you know, I'm still friends with some of the people I've done work for over the years, going back 15, 16 years easily. And, you know, I ask them, you know, periodically. I got a guy that I did a 67 Malibu, I put a subwoofer in the dash of his car. He told me, he says, it's convertible. I want to put a subwoofer in here and a sound system. And I told him, I said, well, putting a subwoofer in the trunk of a car is really, of a convertible, is really kind of pointless. So I put the sub box in the dash right next to the glove box and the factory radio. And I told him, I said, if this thing ever rattles, anytime, give me a call. We'll arrange an appointment time, and I'll come out and I'll fix it. And in 5 years after I did the installation, I still never heard from him about it. And I asked him, I says, is it rattling? And he goes, no. And I told him, I said, the only thing I can't get rid of as far as the rattling is there might be some rattling inside the radio, and it's because it's a junk radio from 1967. But even the radio didn't rattle. I figured out how to get rid of some of the rattles inside of the radio, and it's just a radio. It doesn't have a cassette or anything, because in 67, they didn't know what the hell a cassette was. But I did expanding foam in that car as well, and I did a bunch of other things. I made some fiberglass parts and stuff like that. And he's been very satisfied with that car, and I think he still has the car. He lives out in Encinitas. But this expanding foam stuff is absolutely amazing. You can do so many different things with this. It's great for arts and crafts. It's great for car work, home work, anything you have to do. And it's incredibly good for making forms. You just let it set up and seal. It does take about 24 hours for it to completely cure all the way through the inside, so like a thing. I've even thought about making a sub box entirely out of this stuff, because you could do it. The only thing you'd have to do is you'd have to make a baffle out of wood or something, or fiberglass, to mount the speaker to, but I'm thinking about building one of these days. And it's probably gonna have to be really big, because the walls have to be really thick. But this stuff will harden up really well. And if you can actually spray, I heard somebody once say that you could spray MAKP over the surface, like the trick with the water, and it would actually harden it even more, so the exterior would be even harder. So that's something I might try. I hope this was useful. Hope you have a great time, and remember to use expanding foam.